We are going to have a next session on data-driven governance, institutional accountability, and efficiency. We have a small panel discussion for that, but first, I would like to invite Sandeep Ghosh, the Director of the Development Intelligence Unit, DIU, a TRI and Sambodhi Research Joint Initiative. Sandeep has over 30 years of experience working in the development sector, holding management positions with global commercial research agencies. So if I can invite Sandeep up to the stage, I believe he has a little presentation he wants to give before we jump into the discussion. Sandeep? A round of applause for Sandeep, come on.
Okay, the presentation is loaded in which machine?
I think you'll see it there. And if you just can come a little closer to the mic and talk.
No, it's okay. That's fine. Okay, people must be hungry. So I'll breeze through my presentation. Actually, this presentation is a precursor to the discussion that we are going to have with our panelists, which is about public data, administrative data, public intent data, whatever you may call it. But using public data is one thing, but using it well to take decisions which sort of impact the people of our country is something altogether different. So we all know that the government creates a lot of data. I mean, every government department generates tons and tons of data, but how much of that data is actually in usable form or can be used to create goods and services and products which can be given back to government for taking decisions is something which we will be probably talking about. One such initiative of DIU, which is, as you said, the Development Intelligence Unit, is something called a Quality Life Experience Dashboard. It uses, if you can, next. It uses data which has been collected through a survey which the Ministry of Rural Development does annually, which is called the Mission Antyodaya Survey. And it covers all 6.6 lakh villages in the country and 2.58 lakh gram panchayats. It's a massive, massive survey. And outside of the census, this is the largest survey which is undertaken in India. And I'm sure if it's the largest in India, it's probably largest in the world. And it's a huge amount of data. So we decided to use this data to create something which helps people take certain development decisions. So the basic thing what we realized was that there are two users of data inside government. One is the legislative arm, that is the MPs and the MLAs, who are the authorizing environment, if I say, and the other one is the executive arm, which looks at the operational capacity, which is essentially your district collectors or district magistrates, your block development officers, and so on and so forth. So we decided, can we create a product which is useful for both wings? I mean, we have seen a whole lot of products come out in India, which ranks districts, which ranks states, and so on and so forth. We wanted to create a product which goes beyond districts and blocks and so on and so forth, but actually, can it also rank parliamentary constituencies? Can it also rank assembly constituencies? And can it go at the lowest level and look at what is the performance of individual gram panchayats? So next. So as you said, we decided to create something called the quality life experience, which is tethered under three pillars, which is a livelihood pillar, an infrastructure pillar, and services pillar. The livelihood pillar has, if I remember correctly, about 11 or 12 indicators. The infrastructure pillar has 13 indicators, and the services pillar has 8 indicators. As you can see, if you can get a quick glance at what was written here, is that it covers a whole lot of facets of development on availability of different things at a village level. If made available, the quality of life experience would be better for the villagers. Next. We took an example of Karnataka, and the idea was the product has to be meeting multi-user requirements. and it has to have a standardized construct. For every level, you can't make a new construct. So one standardized construct, but multiple users at multiple levels. So execution environment, for example, if you can say that the chief minister of the state of Karnataka would be very interested how their districts are doing. So all 31 districts, we need to know under what parameter one district is better than the other. The district development commissioner or the district magistrate, let's say we took an example of the Mandya district, would be interested in how their 7 development blocks are performing. A BDO of a particular block, and we took the example of the Pandavpura block, they would be very interested in knowing how are the 24 Gram Panchayats within my block doing. So it's all multiple levels, but same construct. Similarly, if you look at authorizing environment, the Prime Minister of India would be very interested in how are my 28 parliamentary constituency are doing, because at the end of the day, it's important for his next election. The member of parliament or an MP from the Mandya parliamentary constituency would like to know what's actually happening in these 8 assembly constituencies. And within the assembly constituencies, if you look at the Malukute Lok Sabha assembly constituency, they'll be very interested in knowing what is happening in the 24 Gram Panchayats within the assembly constituency. Next. So we created a dashboard with all the data at the back end. The dashboard has a lot of features. It actually lets you toggle between whether you're looking at the administrating wing, that is the state, the district, the block, and the Gram Panchayat, or whether you want to look at the electoral side, that is the state, the parliamentary constituency, the assembly constituency, and finally the Gram Panchayat. What it also does is that you can look at it at overall. So there is an overall value for quality of life index, which takes all the indicators together, or you can actually look at it. I want to only look at what's happening in livelihood. I want to look at what's happening in services. I want to look at what's happening in amenities. Another thing it allows you to do, and this is something which is very interesting, is to look at different scales. Like, for example, there is a scale that you have used to rank districts. You can use the same scales to rank block. You can use the same scale to rank Gram Panchayats. The problem what happens is typically in a single scale scenario is that, let's take the case of a single scale used for India and the same scale you're using for Kerala. In Kerala, it's so far ahead of everybody else in the development paradigm that everything is the same color. See, if you see the color code, red, orange, yellow, green, and very darker green, the darker green is high level of quality life experience. So if you look at Kerala, Kerala will be all green. But that doesn't help a person an administrator or or an MP or an MLA in Kerala. They want to say, okay, fine, Kerala is a developed state, that's fine, but I still want to know the differences within each state, within each district. I want to know the subtle differences between each assembly constituency. So we decided on varying scales. One is you can look at it at a district scale, you can look at it at a block scale, you can look at it as a GP scale, you can look at it as you can create a new scale for parliamentary constituencies, you can create a new scale for assembly constituencies. So it gives you both pictures. I'll take you quickly through a demo. This is going to be put up in our website very soon. It's going to be a free resource for the time being, with anybody can actually use and play with it. The idea was to create a product, as I said, which is useful, which makes sense of all this data being collected. So this is the website. So you go to, as you can see on the top, it's the toggle is between administrative and electoral. You click on Karnataka. This is Karnataka, and it's because it's administration, it is showing you the relative position of individual districts. If you choose a district, let's say you go down and choose Mandya, for example, or you can choose any other district, but choose Mandya, for example. And Mandya, for a state scale, Mandya is a relatively developed district. Yes? Mandya is a relatively developed district. So this is the picture. It says most of the blocks in Mandya are very developed. It doesn't help you. Then what more do you do? Where is it that you need to intervene? So you can change the scale from state scale to district scale, and it gives you a more nuanced view of which is a better block and which is a slightly more backward block. Within that, you can come down to, let's say, a block. Within a block, you can look at a block called Pandavpura. It's a bit slow, yes. Yeah. So this automatically by default takes the state scale, and this is what all the Gram Panchayats of Pandharpura look like. You change the scale from state scale all the way down to the block scale, and it gives you a different picture altogether. It gives you a more nuanced picture of what different Gram Panchayats are doing. At the same time, if you can go and do an electoral scale, you change from administration to electoral, go to Karnataka, it lists out all the parliamentary constituencies in Karnataka. You can take, let's say you can take Mandya parliamentary constituency once again. You click it, change the scale, and these are all the assembly constituencies within Mandya district. You go to, let's say, another Melukute, yeah, that's fine. Parliamentary assembly constituencies. This is the development profile of the different Gram Panchayats within that assembly constituency. You can again change the scale and get a different picture. Best part of it is that you don't have to look at only maps. You can actually look at the data directly. So all you have to do is just click on the data, click on Karnataka. First, it essentially gives you the overall scores by pillars and the overall score. If you can go to any one district, it gives you the scores of individual blocks. If you go to click on any block, assembly, sorry, we were doing electoral now, assembly constituency, it gives you the scores of the individual Gram Panchayats. And if you click on the Gram Panchayat, you're doing livelihood, okay. And click on that. If you click on any one, like if livelihood services or whatever you want to have it gives you the entire data spectrum, which is available. This is not closed data. This is open data, which is available with the government of India. It is available in the website. What we simply did was that with people intuitively not understands data, we are trying to create a product for them, which makes it useful and interesting to handle data. So for people who are, let's say, researchers would prefer a data view. For people who are not researchers, it could be people in the, I don't mean to say press doesn't understand data. At least in India, press understands data better than I do. But if you want a quick understanding of what's happening where and all that, you can take a map view. So this is the product that we are talking. This is, we have now completed Karnataka. In another month's time, we would be having all states mapped out with all the data which is available. Again, I'm saying that this is going to be lodged in our website as a free service. Thank you.
Wow. This is actually, I think, rural development's best kept secret. This is huge. And when the press who love data and the media really cotton on to the tool that's available, I think they're going to be knocking your door down. Now, as I said, we have a session ahead of us, data-driven governance, the institutional accountability and efficiency. I would like to call our two face-to-face panelists here to have a seat, and I'll introduce them and the online panelist. I will give you the introductions, and then we can have a round of applause for them. So if the two panelists can take a seat up here, I would like to introduce first Mitra Sen, a seasoned professional with extensive experience in monitoring and evaluation, program design, and public administration. He's had a distinguished career in public service as a cadre of the prestigious Indian Statistical Services, culminating as additional Director General of the Statistical Division of the Ministry of Rural Development. Avani Kapoor is a researcher and development practitioner and a leading public finance expert with nearly 2 decades of experience. She's the founder and director of the Foundation for Responsive Governance, ResGov, which works on strengthening the capabilities of public initiatives. She's also a senior visiting fellow at the Center for Policy Research. And joining us online is Darshan Putanaya, who is a member of the Karnataka Legislative Assembly since 2023, representing the Sarvodaya Karnataka Party. Before entering politics, he had an illustrious career in the United States for 15 years. I've already introduced Sandeep, and now can we please give our panelists a round of applause? And I will leave it now to Sandeep to run this session.
Welcome. First of all, a huge shout out to you, Darshanji. You're sitting in US right now where it's midnight, but you still decided to be part of this conclave. I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to start with you. As a newly elected member of the Legislative Assembly, what we would like to know is that what sort of data and the nature of the data and information that you need from the constituency level in order for you to understand and create a sort of roadmap for development in your constituency and meet the aspirations of your people.
Well, first of all, thanks for getting me on the panel here. It's good to meet you all. I think data has been, my background as an engineer. I always liked data. I wanted to understand effectively how things worked in terms of data, what percentage, and things like that. So I started with, after getting elected, a lot of people started showing up to our house and also to the office with a lot of issues. I started collecting the data in terms of why were they coming? What kind of requests were they bringing in? Typically, about 70% of the requests were focused mainly on the revenue side of things, like the revenue department, land issues, and things like that. The second one was more panchayat-related issues. The rest is, transfers and, requests for receiving a school. So we mapped out everything for about 6 months or so in terms of, okay, what are these issues? I think we started looking at how do we solve this? I mean, if I have to only serve the people that come to our house or the office, then probably in the next 5 years, I would probably be able to touch at the most 5,000 people or 10,000 people. So we said, okay, how do you turn that around and say, we make sure instead of they coming to us, how can we get proactive and not reactive? So these services, how can we bring to their doorstep? So we identified a few panchayats, and we took one panchayat and said, for lack of a better term, we said, let's go do a panchayat hackathon. So we brought in the entire team, like the government officials, and we made them stay there for 2 weeks. And we said, we created different teams and said, we went to each house and we created a questionnaire, almost like a census on Booster. So we wanted to understand their economic condition as a family. We want to understand what assets they own. Like, for example, if they have a motorcycle, do they have insurance? Because a lot of the phone calls I used to get was like, hey, can you help me get out of the police thing because I was caught without a license or without insurance. So every asset and things like that, right? So, and then the crops they were growing, with the water resources they were getting, and also the economics around agriculture itself. And how do you help transform the way that they grow the crops and they use their water resources? So a lot of this data was in. We wanted to collect all this data and through kind of MVP fashion. I said, oh, let's use paper and pen. Let's go to each house, and I myself went to each and every house and started collecting data as much as I could, and we created different teams and we collected that data. Once we started collecting that data, we were able to give that data to the government officials as well. And then that created transparency in terms of, okay, how many issues were they created? How many issues, requests were raised? How many issues have been solved? So we extended that 2 weeks to 3 weeks because I said, without solving all the issues that were reported, because I was actually able to track that data, we are not leaving the panchayat. Let it take 4 weeks, let it face 5 weeks, right? So now because we created we collected data, we created transparency, we said, and then put that in the hands of the government officials, and we were able to monitor that as well. That is the kind of initiatives that we wanted to drive and say, now we are digitized that whole data collection process, and we are putting that in the hands of every household, people in the household. Our main indicators were like, okay, how many people showed up to your office? We said the lesser the people who show up in your office is when you're actually successful. So that's the criteria that we gave to each and every government office. I mean, it's a work in progress, but that's the ultimatum that we have given. And the number of people coming to our office also has to decrease. So we are trying to shift it from being reactive, proactive in providing the services, bringing up their monitoring their economic condition, bringing them up as well. So I know I spoke a lot there, but I'll stop there.
Thanks for that. Before I move on, I just wanted to have. Before I move on, I just wanted to ask one more question to you. It's a very generic question, but it's a question which we struggle with in our line of work a lot. Is that you personally, your opinion personally on the importance of evidence and facts in political or administrative decision making as against what we call gut feel?
I think that's a great question. I think we all do that with gut feel. My basic question is, how do you grant licenses for colleges? For what degree? Like in our village where I stay, we have 400 people who have bachelor's degrees, BAs and BScs and BComs who don't have a job. When Mr. Vijay was speaking earlier, he said, how do you get these people who have educated don't want to go to the farm, to the fields, but yet they're not able to get the job. So with the gut feel, we are giving licenses to open up new colleges. I'm just giving you an example, but without the actual data, okay, what is the demand? What is the supply that we need to really focus on? How can you really actually go in and with the gut feel, start producing kids with education that is not required and they're not able to get the job? That's just a simple example.
I think that's an example which all of us can identify with. Sure. I will, sir, I'll move on to you next. There's so much I wanted to ask you, but I think there is a bit of paucity of time. But with your so many years of experience of having worked with government through the statistical service, essentially there are three things that I really want to ask you. Three things which we need to know. Number one is that based on your experience, how are ministries viewing data gathering? Do they view it like it's an obligation that has to be fulfilled? It's just a protocol, or do you see a change in the government where meaningful data is being collected because they have finally understood that data leads to better decision making? That's one. The second one I want to ask you is that our ministry, I mean, when we first came into this industry, let's say 20, 25, 30 years ago, most of the ministries were still working in silos. They were creating their own data. They had their own formats. There was no interoperability. So it was very difficult to get a consolidated, holistic view of development because data sets created by ministries were not talking to each other. And the third thing which I want to know is how reliable, in your view, is supply side data? Because government data is supply side data. Can we blindly close our eyes and trust it?
Thank you, Sandeep. First, I thank you for inviting me for this colloquial meeting also. Now, regarding the three questions you have put, first is the data, whether data is an obligation for the government or it is a requirement, desirable requirement. It is both. One is this: nowadays, if we look at it, that every centrally sponsored scheme has got within inbuilt mechanisms that there will be collection of data regarding the progress of the scheme, and there will also be the monitoring. So this is the mandatory requirement. But looking at data from a philosophical point of view, how do you know where you stand? How do you know where you want to go? And how much you have traveled in the course of journey of development? So all these things are required through data only. Unless you have the data, you will not know whether you are moving at all or whether you are reaching. So a government organization or any organization cannot do without data. So data is very much the process of the activity. Now, regarding the government developmental program, it is a mandatory requirement first that every scheme has to have inbuilt mechanism of monitoring, as well as it has to have a kind of evaluation also. These are the mandatory requirement. Beyond monitoring and evaluation, if you want to collect the data like midterm evaluation or you want to see the progress, then the ministry undertake a further activity to collect more data. So data is collected by all departments of the government of India, as well as those dedicated organizations like Ministry of Statistics, like National Sample Survey Organization. So there are regular framework for collection of data, like you have National Health Ministry, which is collecting under the National Health Survey, NFSH, and then Family Health Survey, and then you have National Sample Survey Organization, which is collecting household survey. So these are two extensive exercises which are done every year. Beyond that, there are many ministries like Mission India of the Rural Development, which is also a very extensive exercise which collects the data on the development in rural area. So these are the standard which have been a framework of the data collection which are already established. Beyond that, every ministry is doing whatever, whenever they feel the need, they collect the data. So data collection is used by all ministry are collecting from different dimension, different segment. There is no dearth of data of any ministry. Now coming to the second question was about interoperability. Interoperability was a very, very big issue in the beginning because everybody was collecting data in a different format. It was difficult. No standardized approach was there. But now with the digital revolution, this is being addressed to a great extent, because I remember when I was in the Ministry of Labor, it collect a lot of employment and skill data. But at the same time, Ministry of Skill is also collecting data on skill. So now this API is a one thing that with that you can bring the interoperability of the data. So that is being reduced to a great extent, but still lot of work is to be done in that. Still, I find it, the ministry collect data on the same indicator, another ministry is collecting the data, but definition is different. The definition of the indicator, like coverage, particular age group may be different, that maybe some other attribute may be different. So then when definition is different, interoperability become a very big issue. So that also need to be addressed. Although, as I mentioned, in the government system, there is consultation with other ministry before you start collecting the data is a mandatory requirement. But then still it is not given that much importance. So what happened? These issues that whether the new indicator which you are trying to develop and collect data on that, whether that meet the standard requirement of all other ministry, that is still a lot of thing is to be done in that. I have found it even in Mission Antyodaya also, there was a issue of definition used to come when it was not matching with the definition under the National Family Health Survey, or maybe some other department also, they raised the issue. I don't know which, I'm slightly not able to recollect. Another department also raised the issue about the definition. So these issues do come up about the interoperability. But the rest is this, in the different format and all this thing, API are being developed where they're able to capture data, can also be standardized and normalized so that it can be used by others. So digital revolution is helping a lot in that. Third is about the quality. Quality, of course, quality is a matter of like when we go to the market, they say that how much money you spend, that much is the quality you get it. So data is one issue, is that if the government provide good fund, then the quality of data turn out to be good. But because there has to be a inspection of the data collection, which is like, I find it, I was telling it in some survey where once the data is collected, nobody look at it, the data, there is no review mechanism. Like in NSSO, what happened, because it is a 40-year-old system of collection of data, that for every 50 schedule, for every for every 50 schedule, there will be, the supervisor will take out 4 schedule and it will go visit the places where from the data has been collected. I think this is where from the data has been collected. So this is the kind of system, and even his senior take out 1 out of 100 for this quality check. And that way you can see the quality of data. But in most of the places where data is collected, there is no such review, there is no such second inspection to do that. So there is this, because in many places what happened, they say with the same money you increase the coverage, but they will not say whatever data is being collected, that should be of good quality, in that sense that there have to be accountability of the field surveyor, there have to be the accountability of data disseminator or data, those who are going to collect the data, there have to be accountability at every level. In fact, it happened, but when you keep on finding these mistakes, because unless inspection is there, if a second review is there, nobody will find the mistake and nobody will be able to question it. I remember that a big mistake happened in annual survey of industry, which is a very well established system of data collection of the industry information. There somehow somebody made a big mistake, and the production of sugar turnout was shown to be, because it is not based on the census, it is a survey again, somehow it turned out to be, and it created a lot of problem in the GDP. And GDP was, when GDP exceeded by 0.5 point, then everybody said, we do the reverse exercise. Then finally it turned out to be this sugar production, somebody overestimated by 10 digit. No, not 10 digit, but 10%. By 10% they overestimated, then it was found to be that it was a typographical error which nobody noticed, and it turned out to be in the data set. So, but after that, this happened in sometime 2011 or 12. After that, it has not repeated. But if we have not done this second inspection, such thing may creep in the data. And so quality is something like this. You need to have, quality is compromised when even in most of the survey, I find it, you will find it, outliers are there where the field surveyor is not having the good training of understanding each indicator, because there will always come a problem, like when a respondent, how he answered and how it is interpreted by the surveyor, that only come with the training. If the person is well trained, he will receive that information very well. Otherwise, like you must have seen even in census, all those who are aging in multiple of 5, that population is always higher than those who are in the multiple of 2 or 3. So this happens with that there also, because nowadays it does not happen, but at one time people used to tell their age that, oh, when there was a big flood in my area, I was born that time. So this is but you have to interpret it from that. So this is even most of the responses when the individuals are taken response. I remember like even in Mission Antyodaya, it happened whether you have a post office in your village. Is a hai, but that post office is actually in the next village, because it is 100 meters from your place. You feel it is in my village, but village boundary, they are not very sure about village boundary. So the surveyor has to know, he has to be well trained for taking the data. So quality is a continuous exercise, and also it is a factor of the money you spend on data collection. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you. Right. So, yeah. So, various finance, you've serviced various finance commissions. You've worked with. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Yeah, I mean, I've known you since you worked with the Ministry of Rural Development. My fundamental question to you is that do you see any change in the appetite for data consumption within government itself? Do you see people now trusting data, and most important, or do you see it having I mean, it's a vertical phenomena or a horizontal phenomena. I mean, if you've got a very dynamic department, then yes, or if you've got a very dynamic person at a particular level, then yes, it's not something which has been ingrained uniformly across. So what's that change that you're seeing in the data landscape? And number two is that it'd be very nice if you can share with us some anecdotal evidences of work that you have done in your career where the direct output of what you have done actually has been used by the government to do some mid-course corrections, take some regulatory response or anything. I mean, that's had it's not some report which is lying somewhere and with cobwebs, but it's actually you've seen it in your lifetime being used and the results. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think it's a bit of a nuanced answer, but at first go, I'd say definitely there's been a massive change in data consumption. Just the fact we were recently doing work for the Chief Minister Economic Advisory and Transformation Council in Rajasthan, where just for health alone, there were 48 apps that existed, collecting real-time data on a range of indicators. The presence of technologies meant that data can be collected faster, it can be checked, the quality can be checked better, the data can be processed better. And a lot of states, and the reason I say that is a lot of states have also developed data policies. So the fact that I don't think any department right now will say data is not important. So that's a very fundamental change. You have Punjab data policy, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Sikkim, like a range of states have come up with data policies. And in fact, the Tamil Nadu one is really interesting because they're actually thinking of data from how do you make decision making stronger through it. So it talks about using data for scheme formulation, implementation, and evaluation. But if you look a little deeper, that's where I said it's a bit nuanced. If you think of a data cycle, which includes data generation as step one, data usability, which is the quality angle that's talked about as step two, data usage, and then finally, how does its data used for policy making or policy transformation? That's where it becomes a little gray. Most of our research has shown that while there's full belief in the importance of use of data, the usage is often limited to people at the senior level. So it hasn't penetrated down vertically. While data generation is usually bottom up, data usage is not really thought about at every level. You often have frontline workers not really even being asked about what is the data that they would require. So the kind of dashboard that you made, which every level is taken into account, thinking through what is the relevance of this level and what is the data that we should have access to. I don't think that kind of thinking is fully permeated through states and departments. It also means that data is thought of still very much as a monitoring tool and less as a planning tool. How do I use data to make decisions? That level is still a little missing. I'm still hopeful because I think, like I said, there's so much transformation that's happened. And so it just requires a little bit more pushing. I remember working with a state department who wanted to create a dashboard. And they wanted a very similar dashboard to yours. Like you should be able to drill down at every level. And one of the things that we asked is, can we talk to the BDO and can we talk to the frontline workers and have focus group discussions with them as well to say, what are the indicators that would be most useful for them to do their job? And the first question was, but why? Why do you need to talk to them? I should be able to see the data and the data should be more visible for me. But I think that's changing a little bit. Just because of the amount of data that exists, it means that there is this conversation being pushed saying, how do you use that data better as interoperability? And we've seen examples of it happening both within a department, but also across departments. Sadly, a little dependent on individuals though, still. I can give you an example of how, is this your second question? So I'm moving towards your second question in some ways. It's a tricky question because I always resist from taking like that causality of my assistance helped in a government department or ministry. So I'm putting that caveat out there. But even with the caveat, I think there are countless examples now. And what's amazing is that you have economic survey quoting research from civil society organizations. You have Supreme Court orders quoting research and data from data collected by non-state actors. I think the two examples come to mind. One was this problem where a state wanted to improve their utilization of a particular sector of health. And when we were doing analysis, we were able to try and guide them in terms of what is it more efficient to do a training, for example, at the state level or a district level, just by looking also at the utilization metrics and trying to dig a little deeper about if the utilization is low, why is that the case? Is it that you could not find the vendors in time? Did you not have the adequate space? And as a result of it, you weren't able to conduct that training. So that's an example where we could use data and analyze data and both quantitative, but also speaking to people and understanding the why. And we were able to tell them the economies of scale in some ways, what should be done at what level, which may be more efficient, at least in this case. The second is, I think, Finance Commission is an interesting example because the Finance Commission itself commissions studies from civil society organizations. We've contributed to a few. And the 14th Finance Commission in particular, I think one of the asks from us was cost out how much would it cost a Gram Panchayat to actually be able to deliver the services that it's meant to as per the constitution. And when we started costing it out sector by sector, the number was pretty close to the award that was finally given to the Gram Panchayats. And I'm not, like I said, it's not that I'm taking full credit. I think there are a number of organizations that contributed to it, but that's an example where you can see that relying on civil society organizations and research organizations definitely helps the government sometimes make these quick decisions.
They're opening up to it?
Definitely. I think if civil society actors or non-state actors, let's put it, because it's a wide spectrum, non-state actors can help in two ways. One is knowledge and second is skills. And by knowledge, it is also documenting these examples of where things are working well. Darshanji's from Karnataka. We've been documenting with the government of Karnataka just some of these convergence that is happening at the Gram Panchayat. And the role that an NGO played in trying to convert a COVID task force at the Gram Panchayat level into active health screening, which is for non-communicable diseases, is amazing. And so we're playing a role of documenting it, but as an NGO that's actually doing that work with the state. So there are lots of ways in which they can contribute. And then, of course, is skills, technical skills, the kind of dashboards that you've just shown us. Those are technical skills that sometimes the government may lack. But that's where I think all of us can come in and assist that process. There's a lot of data, but how do you pick that data and analyze it in a way that's useful back to government is again another way that I think we can all contribute.
I'll just quickly wrap up. One of the things with both of you alluded to, and you especially, is something which is going to be a margdarshak for us going forward. We also felt that usage or the data savvy atmosphere is rightly at the upper echelons of government. But that's precisely the reason why we started making products like these, that if you can take it up from the ministries and bring it all the way down to the BDO level and make products and services which is easy and intuitively easy to use, then I think the data culture will change. I'm assuming the data culture is already changed at the top, but I think with better usable products and services at the bottom level, I think the data culture will change throughout. So I think that's food for thought. And I would like to thank both of you and Darshanji. I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're still there. But I hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you so much for joining us, all three of you. And thanks.
One thing
Thank
I just want
Sure,
to
sure,
add, you put my first question was accountability on data collection.
Mhm.
But I feel there should be accountability on data uses, because lot of data is wasted in Government of India for this reason that it is not put to proper use. So data collection is done as a exercise, but after that it's proper use, because it's so much huge. When you have spent suppose 1 crore rupee on collection of 5,000 data points, so you put one data point, what is that? So that should be put to use also. It should not be, because I am giving this information. In 2010-11, I was collecting lot of monitoring evaluation report conducted independently by the ministry, other than Planning Commission. At that time, it used to be Planning Commission. But in 2017-18, I was not able to find those reports. So they just have gone into somewhere on the back bench or somewhere. So that is what I felt it, and I raised it during my farewell speech. Because so much of data is collection and it is forgotten. So
That sounds like a great place to end it on. Let's have a round warm applause, please, for our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining. I think it was such an interesting and insightful talk. I particularly like the idea of using data to help governments govern, shifting governments from reactive to proactive. That sounds nice. Also, that a lot of states have come out with these data policies, and it shows that people are now understanding the importance of using data. I think we would probably, all of us in this room, agree with that. And the notion that you get what you pay for. So start spending a little more money, governments, on data is a good idea too. And responsible gathering of data and disseminating is super important. So thank you so much. Lots of food for thought as we now break for lunch. Before we break, I just want to say two things. One, stay with us because we have a fantastic session on health. We are shifting the conversation away from disease and cures to not just preventative, but community helping and healthy living, not just hospital attendance. So please stay tuned for that. And one final round of applause, please, for our wonderful panelists.